Hello friends, last lecture we have covered the details in variations in size of the cells, fine, and lastly we have compared eukaryotic cell with other organisms. Here it is very important to note that in last lecture we have understood that the smallest cell, right, found is PPLO, right, and in your book it is mentioned, definitely in diagram it is mentioned as a PPLO, but in the words it is mentioned that it is mycoplasma having a size of zero point 0.3 micrometer. That is also true, and that also we have discussed, right. Why it is I am repeating this part is because we have said that it is PPLO, but PPLO ultimately is a type of mycoplasma only. Okay, and you know that mycoplasmas are group of bacteria which are without cell wall. You can just see that here typical bacteria is having cell wall. PPLO mycoplasma, definitely they are devoid of cell wall, right. So this was just you can say a revision for you. Now we will start with today's lecture. Now you all are aware of that biology is having three major branch, right. You can divide biology in three major divisions, that is zoology, botany and microbiology. Now each of this branch, definitely you will go through two details. One is anatomy and second is physiology. Okay, why I am discussing this is because these definitions are very much important for understanding of the topics which we are going to take, right, in future. So let us start. What is anatomy? Anatomy is the science which deals with size, shape, structure, location of a organ, right, or a part. Say for example, if I consider plant, then the shape of plant leaf, right, the size of plant leaf, right, location, right, these all details you can consider as a anatomy, right. That's what you call as a plant anatomy. Definitely similarly you can consider for the human also, and in that case, say for example I take an example of stomach, right. So if I say that what is anatomy of stomach, so what will be your answer? Some of you will say that sir, it is the organ which is located after esophagus. Some of you will say that yes, it is before small intestine. Some of you will say that it is J shaped structure, right, English alphabet J, right, the shape is J like, and definitely size also some of you will try to. So these all details, this description, right, also definitely internal structure you need to consider, right. So external as well as internal structure, size, location, these all details are covered under anatomy. Once you are knowing the anatomy of an organ, of an part, then you should learn functioning of that structure, functioning of that organ, and that is covered under physiology, right. So for any topic, any organ, you have two major division, anatomy and physiology. Anatomy deals with the structure, size, shape and location, and physiology deals with the normal functioning of that organ. Again we will take example of stomach. So what is function of stomach? Definitely it secretes gastric juice which contains acid and some enzymes like pepsinogen, and this acid definitely is helpful for digestion. So what is the function of stomach? Digestion of food. Okay, this is how you have to understood. Now in anatomy you can further divide into subdivisions, that is morphology and histology. Morphology, definitely logy refers to study, and morpho refers to external structure or the outer appearance, right. What is the size, shape, what you are able to look with naked eyes, right, without aid of any, you can say, instrument, that is morphology, right. And histology is you take a section of that organ, right, either transverse section or longitudinal section, and in that case you study internal structure with the use of microscope. So logy refers to study and histo refers to tissue. When you study the tissue within an organ, right? That type of study is referred as a histology. Say for example, stomach, right? We will take an ideal example again. So stomach, if you just take a TS, you will check that there are mucosal folds. So there is a mucosal layer. Beneath the mucosa there is a connective tissue, so there is a submucosal layer. Then you have a thick muscles, right? Then you have a serosa layer, protective serosa layer, right? So these four layers are found in the histology. Why it is important? Because if a sample, right, comes to a pathology laboratory, then which organ is there, what are normal findings of the tissue, that you should be aware of, right? If you are knowing normal, then you will be able to find out abnormalities which are associated with that structure. Okay, so definitely these two study, morphology and histology, are combined so that you can have an idea of anatomy of an organ. Moving towards the next is physiology. Definitely we have learned that physiology is study of normal functioning. Now once you are aware that what is normal functioning, then definitely one more division of physiology, that is pathophysiology or pathology, right? On a simple word it is called as a pathology, that you will be aware of. Now patho refers to abnormal and logy refers to study. So when it is normal functioning, you call it as a physiology. But when it is deviating from its normal range, you call it as a pathophysiology. Say for example, stomach normally is doing digestion of food, so that's normal function. But if there is increased in the secretion of acid, right, normally acid is secreted, that's fine. But if this secretion is more, you called as a hyper secretion or you called as a hyper acidity. On the other side, if it is a less secretion of acid, then also it will be problem, right? The food will not be digested, there will be indigestion, and that condition is referred as achlorhydria. A refers to absence, chlorhydria, that refers to secretion of hydrochloric acid. So there is absence of hydrochloric acid, that is indigestion. Okay, so on both sides you need to consider normal range. If it has been on the higher side, then also it is abnormal. If it is less than the normal, then also it will cause the problem, right? Such implications, clinical implications, definitely are covered under pathophysiology. Okay, and pathophysiology you will be only able to understand if you are knowing normal anatomy and physiology, right? So this is a very important discussion, right? And throughout your 11th and 12th, you will need these basic terminologies. Considering 11th biology, major proportion of your syllabus is having plant anatomy, plant physiology, and a big unit human physiology, and weightage of that in exam also is quite high. So every time you will need use of these terms, you should be very clear with these all terminologies. Okay, chalo, now let's you can say check some historical facts, starting with the first one, that is discovery of cell. And definitely the credit goes to Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke in 1665 discovered the cell, and he discovered the cell in a plant that is called as a Spanish oak, right? You can just see that this is the name, right? Is a large tree, right? And what Robert Hooke observed was slices of cork, dead bark, that was taken and observed under the microscope. The scientific name of Spanish oak is Quercus suber. It is important to note this name suber, and I will come to this name also, how this name came into consideration, right? But definitely what he observed was a dead bark. Remember that cork, that is outer layer of a developed plant, is having protective function, is always dead, right? So why it is dead, that we will try to understand. This is what Robert Hooke observed, right? He observed, right, roughly a shape of a honeycomb, right, and that were cells, right? So for any plant, right, there are two layers, right? That is, one definitely has to be a cell membrane, plasma membrane, and over plasma membrane there is one more layer, and that layer is referred as cell wall. Okay, so this is cell wall. So each of the plant cell is characterized by presence of a primary cell wall, right? Primary cell wall is not having that thick part, right, or is still permeable, so it allows the material flow of material from outside to inside and from inside to outside, right? So it is permeable structure. It is dead, cell wall is dead, but it is permeable structure. Inside of the cell wall everything is living, cell membrane is living, cytoplasm is living, right? And if primary cell wall is there, definitely it will also allow the movement of the material. So that's why cell can maintain its all cellular processes. Now in some cells this primary cell shows thickening, right, in form of lignin or suberin, right? If there is presence of this, definitely thickening is present in all regions, right? In case of cork, right, I am just showing in one part or maybe in this part also, fine. So in this case either there is thickening of lignin or suberin, right? If there is presence of lignin like material, definitely it will not allow the water to enter, it is impermeable for water. And if there is presence of suberin, right, then there will be no entry of water as well as air. This is important to note, right, that air as well as water will not be allowed to enter. If such vital material does not enter the cell, definitely in that case the cell will not be able to maintain its metabolic activity and soon it will be dead. And that is what observed by Robert Hooke, right? That's why he was definitely credited for the discovery of cell, but the cell he found was a dead cell, it was not a living cell. And that's why he came to this word cellular, right? Because what he observed was a hollow space, right? There was nothing inside, there was no nucleus, there was no cytoplasm, and that's why he observed a small room, hollow space, and from that the word cellular has derived. Okay, and why this cell was dead? Because it was having a secondary cell wall which was suberized. Suberized means it is having a presence of suberin, and that's why the name of plant is Quercus suber. Quercus suber, it is important to note here, is a commercial source of suberin, right? And you know that many of the beverages, food beverages, drinks, right, they are covered sometimes with a wooden cork, and that wooden cork is nothing but it's a suberized wooden cork. Okay, why it is suberized? Because it is airtight, right? Say for example bottle of champagne, it is having you could say a bottle cork, and that is definitely a suberized structure, so that air cannot come. The content inside the champagne should not get oxidized. That is the reason why this part is there, right? So let's check a diagram, very important diagram, right, which shows. Okay, let me take the arrow, right? Yeah, so let's check a diagram. Yeah, this was the microscope, right? Robert Hooke was as curious like you, and every time he tried to find new things, and this is what he observed in the Quercus suber, right? Honeycomb like structure. This all description he drew it, and he made the description of this diagram into a book, because the structure he observed were very small, that's why micro, and the recording of that in form of a graphical presentation, that's why the name of book was Micrographia, right? That was the book written by Robert Hooke, right? This is a pictorial, you could say a image, right, which shows both the name of book as well as the image of Robert Hooke. Okay, fine. Let's move to another historical fact, second one, that is Robert Brown. This also is very important to note. Discovery of nucleus, right, was done by Robert Brown, and that was in 1831, right? Once the discovery of free cell, living cell was, because that discovered, then the discovery of nucleus was possible. Nucleus discovery was very important because it's a dictator of the cell, right? All metabolic activities, cellular processes are under control of nucleus. So this discovery was very important, and you need to remember the name of the scientist, that is Robert Brown. Okay, Robert Hooke, discovery of cell; Robert Brown, discovery of, you can say that, nucleus. Fine. Moving toward the third one, and a very important one, is Rodolphe Virchow, who stated that omnis cellula e cellula, and this statement came in 1855. Now, what do we mean by this word? Omni refers to all, right? Everywhere, right? Omni, a word in English we refer as a all or everywhere, right? So omni, that is all cells, right? Cellula, that is cell. Acellula, that is they arises from pre-existing cell. Before this statement was given by Rudolf Virchow, no one was knowing that how a cell, you can say it, a new cell is derived, and that description was given by Rudolf Virchow, right? He said that there is no de novo synthesis. De novo means new synthesis, right? And that does mean that a daughter cell, right, a new cell is always, you can say that, is arising from parent cell. So there is a process of cell division through which a parent cell divides into daughter cell. This is how a daughter cell or a new cell will arise, right? So this important statement, right, was at that time it was not known to the scientist, right? We will go through a theory that is called as a cell theory, and definitely in next lecture, and that was given by Sleeden and Swan. So there are some limitations of that cell theory, right? And at that time, this Rudolf Virchow theory, right, and his statement that omnis cellula cellula explained that how a new cell will arise, and now it is a part of a what we call as a modern understanding of the cell theory, right? That is definitely included as a part of, you can say, that cell theory. Okay, you can also refer as a law of lineage, right? Law of lineage means the characteristic, hereditary characteristic that are observed in one generation, definitely they will be transferred to second generation, right? So this is also a repeatedly asked question in the old examination that you can check in the reference book, right? Both you need to remember both of these sentence. All cell arises from pre-existing cell, right? And in Latin it has been termed as a omnis cellula a cellula, right? This statement was given in 1855 by Rudolf Virchow. Okay, chalo. So we have checked three names, right, regarding the history of the cell or the concepts of cytology. So can I have the revision, right? So I will ask you a question. What was the name of scientist who discovered a cell? Definitely Robert Hooke. A scientist who discovered nucleus? Robert Brown. And scientist who gave the theory omnis cellula a cellula, that is definitely Rudolf Virchow, right? You need to also remember the year in which they have discovered this detail. Okay, so definitely you will go through this detail. Now we will move to one more, that is Antony von Leeuwenhoek. Antony von Leeuwenhoek observed first free living cells, right? So Robert Hooke definitely discovered cells, but they were not living cells, as we have learned that they were dead cells. But living cells were observed, right, almost 9 years after the discovery of first cell, and that is 1674, right? Discovery of cell by Robert Hooke was in 1665, and Antony von Leeuwenhoek observed a living cell in 1674. So he observed various protozoa, bacteria, sperm, right? This is definitely a eukaryotic cell. These are prokaryotic cell. Okay. So bacteria, I will give you an example. Lactobacillus, right? Very common bacteria. Protozoa, again very common example is Plasmodium falciparum, which is responsible for malaria. Okay. So these are some of these unicellular cells, prokaryotic cells, right, that were observed first by A.V. Leeuwenhoek. Also sperm cells were observed by him. So this is the reason why, right? Yeah, you can just see that this is a diagram where you can just see the image of Antony von Leeuwenhoek. Also some of the images which he drawn at that time, and what he observed was a small molecule like structure, and that were behaving as animals, right? This was his description, that these are molecules which are behaving as an animal, and that's why he coined the word animalcule, right? So this is a combination of word animal and molecule. So from that single word was derived, he coined the word animalcule. And because he discovered these microbes, microorganism, so you know that study of microorganism is called as a microbiology, right? Definitely bacteriology, that is study of bacteria, right? Protozoology, that is study of protozoa, These all are branches of microbiology. And because he discovered first, right, these cells were discovered first by Antony von Leeuwenhoek, he is also referred as father of microbiology. Okay, so many important details that we have discussed. If someone asks you who discovered first living cell, and if in option it is mentioned, first option that they will mention is Robert Hooke, do not make hurry in selecting your answer. Just check the question. Here it is asked as a first living cells, right? So definitely answer has to be Antony von Leeuwenhoek. If someone asks you who discovered first cell, then your answer should be Robert Hooke, right? This is how you have to select. Okay, fine. Moving toward very important detail is the discovery of a living plant cell. Okay, so again, first cell, first living animal cell, or first living cell, right? In any case, right? First living cell as well as first animal cell, right? Both case Antony von Leeuwenhoek, because it is 1674. But if someone asks who observed first living plant cell, then your answer will be Marcello Malpighi and Anne Grue, right? Nehemiah Grue, right? These are two scientists who observed first living plant cell. Living cell first was observed by A.V. Leeuwenhoek. Okay, chalo. These cells, they were looking like a small bag, right? In Latin, utricles as well as bladder, right? These two terms, they do mean as a little bag like structure, right? Say for example, urinary bladder. So it's a bag like structure which stores the urine. Okay, gallbladder, it's a bag like structure which stores the bile. Okay, so bladder you can very easily understood. Similarly, utricles also are meant as a little bag like structure. So because these cells were looking like small bags, that's why these scientists, they called them as an utricles and bladder. This detail, last detail that we are discussing, this living plant cell, it is not mentioned in the NCERT, but it is given, it is asked in the previous examination. That's why we are discussing. Okay. Also important designation for these two scientists to remember that Anne Grue, because of its contribution into the structural characteristic of the plants, right, various parts of the plant, he is referred as a father of plant anatomy. And Marcello Malpighi, you will find lots of details throughout your 11th and 12th. Okay, he was founder for this microscopical anatomy, right, that is histology, right, what you study internal structure for various organ, right, that was the founder scientist for that study is Marcello Malpighi. Also you will come across many details regarding physiology, right, and embryology, and that is the reason why father of physiology and embryology, right, these are the designation given to him. One example I would like to quote here, Malpighian corpuscle, right, which is an important part of nephron, right, and this you will learn in excretory system. You also may have learned this in 10th standard, right. So Malpighian corpuscle, that is Bowman's capsule and glomerulus, right, this together is referred as a Malpighian body, and that Malpighian body is definitely named after this scientist Malpighi. Okay, so I hope it is clear, all the details that we have discussed under the heading of some historical facts, right, name of this scientist you need to remember. Okay, fine. So now we will check name of few of the eminent scientists, right, who have contributed a lot in their disciplines, right. So definitely Robert Hooke was the first one to give the description of cell, and you know that cytology is the study, is the branch, right, where you deal with the study of cells, right. So cytology, father of cytology, definitely Robert Hooke. But what he described was a very preliminary type, because at that time there were limitation in the microscope, instrumentation were not that sophisticated, and detailed study of cell was only possible after discovery of electron microscope. Then you were able to study the cellular structures, organelles, how do they function, right, that all details were possible after discovery of electron microscope. So that is called as a modern cytology, the science that we have discovered related to the cell after discovery of the electron microscope, and the credit to that goes to C.P. Swanson. So father of modern cytology, C.P. Swanson, right. And everywhere we definitely try to get an Indian touch. So let's check father of Indian cytology, right. So Dr. A.K. Sharma. So these are some of the names that you can remember, fine. So just I am locking this name you need to memorize this name, and you try to you can speak this name, right? Once I lock it, okay, once I make it hidden. Fine. So let's check. What is the name of father of cytology? Definitely it is Robert Hooke. Father of modern cytology? Definitely it is C.P. Swanson, right? And father of Indian cytology? Yes, it is A.K. 56. Okay, no, on a lighter note, just fine, it is A.K. Sharma. Fine. So these are the details regarding the eminent scientist, right? I hope you have also remembered the details regarding the discoveries of the cells, right? Living cells, right? Living plant cells, right? So let's check again that who discovered living plant cell. Yes, it is Malpighi and Grew. Okay, who discovered first living cell? Antony von Leeuwenhoek. Who discovered first living animal cell? Then also answer is Antony Leeuwenhoek. Right? Who discovered the theory of, or who discovered the law of lineage? It is Rudolf Virchow. Right? Fine. So these all details definitely you can revise as many times as you can as you require, but you need to remember. Okay. So I'm limiting my content up to this. Next lecture we will discuss the cell theory, very important concept that we will go through, right? So cell theory, its concept and limitations of the cell theory we will discuss. Okay, limitation and exception both. Thank you very much.